Right, so for tonight's call here on the Girl Boss Method podcast, we are going to talk HIIT and reformer and the truth about belly fat loss. So, the reason this has come up as a topic is that a client recently asked me, is reformer or HIIT better for belly fat loss? And it's a great question because currently, there's a reformer boom. Everyone is in their Pilates era, and I get it, right? I've actually been teaching reformer specifically since 2017. And would you believe I'm actually a fully certified, comprehensive instructor in Pilates itself? So, not just the reformer, not just the mat, but all the other amazing equipment that hasn't really seen the light of day yet. But anyway, with that being said, when I've used reformer and I've been teaching reformer and all the other equipment, I've used it to help with women recovering from, back surgery. I've used it for pregnant and postpartum mums, with runners, people with sciatica. I've actually even had Parkinson's clients as well that I've used Pilates training for, and also maybe even things like shoulder impingement and so on. So yes, I do love reformer. I think it's absolutely incredible, but I am here to give you the full picture. So we're going to unpack what really works when it comes to belly fat and change, because that's what we're all here, right? So firstly, you want to kind of uncover what drives belly fat gain and what drives its loss. So firstly, and unfortunately, I'm sure you've heard this, but whether or not we believe these truths or you choose to kind of sweep them under the carpet, you cannot spot reduce fat. Your body actually decides where the fat's going to come off from. So when you are in a fat loss phase, when you're in an energy deficit, and there are changes occurring, your fat will just go from where it likes. And I know this from experience because I have been at points within my life, whether it's been because I was just going through my competing days, or it was maybe even sort of earlier on in my life, my sort of late teens, that sort of thing. I know what it's like to have very low body fat, not ridiculously low, but low enough that my boobs were gone. So I literally had no breast tissue, like minimal, right? So, but that being said, it would always be that would be going there first, and then the belly would always be the last bit when I was in a deficit of some sort. So in terms of what belly fat is often tied to, so we know that stress can have an effect because we'll have that increased cortisol. And we all know about that because that will obviously, again, lead to that predominance of fat storage around your belly. Low muscle mass. So this is why I really ramp on or harping on about muscle mass and how important it is for us to be resistance training. If you have low muscle mass, you can kind of shoot for and go, no, I just want weight loss. I just want to see the scales come down. I just want to lose weight. I just want to lose weight. I guarantee you within that situation, yes, you'll lose weight, but where will it come from? You'll lose muscle. And then will you actually be getting rid of the fat, the belly fat, for example, or the fat that you want to drop? Because when people say they want to lose weight, typically it's that they want to lose fat. Okay. We don't want to lose everything else. Okay. All the stuff that gives us shape, like muscle mass. So, and it's also goes without saying that muscle is metabolically, it's metabolically better tissue mass as well. So it means that, you've all probably heard that at rest, If you have more muscle, you'll burn more calories, or you'll utilize them better, etc. So again, low muscle mass is not good. Poor sleep as well. Poor sleep, not only is it going to have an effect on the sort of the stress, but also it's going to have an effect on your hormones in terms of the hormones responsible for hunger and satiety. So you know you've got these two hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is the one that sounds like a gremlin. It will lead you to feel more hungry. And these typically, when you've had crappy sleep, there is an increase in that, and there's a decrease in leptin. Leptin's not really hanging about so much. Overtraining without any recovery. So more doesn't always mean better, and actually less is better. Especially when we're trying to create good balance with this. So you don't want to just kind of keep going, right, yeah, I just need to keep training more. You're not a hamster on a wheel. And then also under eating over time. So under eating over time, you are going to start to find that there are shifts in the way that your metabolic rate is working. You will start to have some metabolic adaptation, meaning that perhaps maybe you will burn less or use less calories over time. And you could say that maybe this is sort of the body's way of kind of going, we need to kind of preserve what energy we have got coming in, and we need to utilize it for all the vital functions in the body first, which again, it's just a shit show anyway. You want to feel energized when you are going for fat loss. Okay, so yes, reformer and HIIT, so high intensity interval training, can support fat loss, but only if the right foundations are in place. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we are going to kind of break down reformer and HIIT and what they actually do. But if we've got all the other right foundations in place, these can help support you in other ways, like indirectly. So again, we kind of talked about spot reduction myth a moment ago, but yes, doing more. And this thing kind of drives in from the fact of doing, and this is maybe why people kind of associate and think that reform is going to be the new thing, because there's lots of core involved, lots of abs involved. Doing more abs does not burn belly fat. And for HIIT, for example, sweating more within those HIIT classes does not mean that you're targeting belly fat. It's just not how fat loss works, unfortunately. Fat loss is a system. It's a process. You lose it from everywhere, not just where you're feeling it the most. You know, I can't wake up and go, oh my God, my abs are really worked. I'm suddenly going to drive all the fat loss around that area. Unfortunately, it doesn't help. But what it is important to note is that exercise does help retain lean muscle mass, therefore improving your shape. And fat loss is actually coming from consistency with your nutrition and your energy balance. So whether that is the energy that we're utilizing to create that deficit, let's say. So when it comes to reformer Pilates, what is it good for? It's, again, as I'll say it again, I am qualified. I'm highly qualified in reformer. I used to help clients with rehab, with posture, mobility, with core engagement, with pregnancy, postnatally. And, you know, it's brilliant, but let's be clear on what it's actually designed for. And this, you could say, is my biggest irk. But it's designed for helping to improve your posture and core control. It's a body system. It helps strengthen your pelvic floor. Again, whether this is in the way of the exercise selection or the way that we're kind of driving that sort of mind to muscle or mind to body awareness. So yes, it can enhance that mobility. And it's great for recovery. It's really important for recovery, for breath work, and for rehab. And again, this is if you are doing traditional reformer Pilates in the way that it was created. So yes, it can be a great addition to a well-rounded training plan because, and then when we kind of think about when people say that reformer is like strength and this is the thing that's sort of helping with toning or, because I'm working loads of abs, what you need to understand is on its own, without any progressive overload or attention to nutrition, which is where 90% of the work's going to come from, it's not going to dramatically change your body composition or reduce fat. There is something called newbie gains, and that means that when you take a completely untrained individual, someone that's come from doing no physical activity, and you apply a system or a form or a way of creating resistance training or training stimulus, perhaps for someone that has never exercised, it might work well. And it might work well for a short period of time until there's some physical adaptation to the strength and loading that's occurring. So in terms of progressive overload, we should always be challenging the muscle tissues. So if we're not challenging them with increasing reps, improving technique, improving loading, this is where Pilates is gonna fall down, unfortunately, unless, and let's say for some of you girls, right, for some of you ladies, you are hip thrusting well over 100 kilos. Now, are you telling me that your bum is going to get toned by doing the same red blue springs on a reformer? Are you going to get the same loading transfer as you might do with hip thrust, for example, and muscle growth, the stuff that is responsible for toning? So it's just something to kind of bear in mind. And then we come to HIIT. So what is HIIT good for? HIIT is actually great for, time. Those of you that are sort of time poor and you're kind of lacking, time to kind of fit any cardiovascular training, or we are trying to get the most that we can within this short period of time. So HIIT can be really beneficial in that sense. So, for example, if we are trying to increase some energy expenditure and we might kind of think, well, steady state cardiovascular work can be really good, but it's low stress. However, maybe you don't have time to kind of fit that in. So, and maybe there's not even time for you to get steps in. So there is a way that we can kind of use some of these things as tools, right? Ultimately, it improves cardiovascular health and fitness. And it can improve your insulin sensitivity. So this is really great for our PCOS ladies, or any of you that are suffering with any sort of metabolic health conditions. So we are kind of thinking more in the terms of, the maybe even the diabetes type 2 type stuff, these sort of ability for your body to kind of release insulin and even accept it in again, the glucose into the tissues. It can help, right? It can help create that sort of pushing and getting the glucose into the muscle cells, into the tissues that we need it to, and the cells that we need it to. And there's also this other effect. So a slight boost in post-exercise calorie burn. So the EPOC actually stands for exercise post-exercise oxygen consumption. So this is almost that sort of afterburn effect that you might that we experience from when we say like a heavy resistance training session. It's almost as if your body is continuing to burn more or require more oxygen, and then therefore burn more calories, more than it might do usually. And so this is a sort of afterburn effect. And it's not, the effect is real, but it's not massive. So it might kind of add sort of 6%, maybe 10 to 15% in terms of a calorie burn post that session itself, but it's not enough to replace a structured training protocol nor your nutrition as well. Sorry to let you down with that one. Okay. So then I kind of wanted to talk about some studies here. So it's just key to understand that yes, HIIT is great, and we've listed all those great, wonderful things that you can do with HIIT, but it's not magic. It's not magic for fat loss. And here are some studies that I kind of brought up. So HIIT and steady state cardio, we talked about that. They actually result in a similar fat loss when the calorie burn is matched. So there's not anything magical about it. It's just creating energy expenditure within a shorter period of time. And then we want to talk about sort of this one, the next one, chronic high intensity interval training may actually elevate cortisol and impact reproductive hormones in women. Why do you think this might be? Is because maybe within this one, especially if it's chronic high intensity, it's somebody that is literally doing F45 5 days a week. So you really want to reduce the belly fat. Now, although it's great because you are getting all these amazing cardiovascular benefits and maybe even some strength gains within there because of the way that you're pushing. Maybe there is some, like as we said, there could be some EPOC effect, so the exercise, post-exercise oxygen consumption. Maybe there's some change in there. But when we're thinking about belly fat and we're thinking about this elevated cortisol, is it really doing you anything wonderful, right? So it's that chronic meaning it's like what you're doing day in, day out. Tiny bit of HIIT at the end of your session is absolutely fine. It's a great finisher. It's a great way to kind of feel as though you've achieved something. So that, and maybe even just doing HIIT once or twice a week, like it's not going to kill you. Okay. Ideally once is enough, right? And then obviously we're coming here. Overuse of HIIT can lead to fatigue, under recovery because you're pushing yourself, and poor adherence in untrained or underfueled women. So for those ladies that have in the past, perhaps maybe you've tried things on your own in the past and you've done your own thing, or maybe you've even had a coach sort of tell you to do this, but you have been given massively low calories, and as a result, you're not actually sticking to it. And you're just hammering out this HIIT because you're part of a group training protocol where, everyone's in this class and you're just going crazy and you're all checking your smartwatches and how many calories have I burnt, blah, blah, blah. Well, what's it doing in terms of you kind of sticking to that protocol, especially if you are massively underfueled? Is it going to stick, right? And yeah, that's it. So if you're doing 5 days a week HIIT and you're still not seeing any changes, there's going to be that poor adherence and under recovery. So yeah, it's not going to be the workout itself. It's more like the stress, the under recovery, and the inconsistent fueling. That's what I'm looking for. So in terms of reformer versus HIIT, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of throw up this table here. We've got the features of some of the things that people might try and look for when they're picking either side or either sort of exercise type. In terms of intensity, reformer Pilates, if it's done traditionally and in the right way, it's actually quite a moderate form of activity. HIIT is high. HIIT is bang for your buck. It's really, really, it's high. That's the name. High intensity interval training. In terms of the calorie burn, you'll get more from HIIT session. You'll get less from reformer. In terms of recovery demand, this is why reformer is so beautiful. It's a great recovery tool. It's great to do active recovery. So if you really have been hammering it in the gym, it's just such a great way to kind of loosen up and mobilize your body and work on other things while still keeping, in tune with like a nice movement exercise habit going on as well. And HIIT, the recovery demands are high. You really do need to take that into account. It won't work long term. And in terms of muscle building, as I've said, it's all relative. It's minimal unless it's loaded or it's load specific in terms of, again, if I was to take an 80-year-old granny that hadn't exercised since she was 29 and I took to a reformer class, she will get newbie gains. She will start to see changes. I don't know if she's going to suddenly become a bodybuilder, but anyway. And then HIIT, yeah, you can. If you are doing HIIT in a format which is, using weights, the weights are programmed, you're able to kind of add in that progressive overload within it, you're pushing heavier each time, then yeah, you can. But at what cost if the recovery demand is high? It goes without saying that, yes, it can stress your hormones if it's overused with HIIT, but there's also the risk of injury as well. It's very fitness based, it's endurance, it's short sessions, it's great if you just need to get in and out. And then reformer, it's best, my opinion, I am qualified in this. I don't know how much you girls know, but I did actually work for a global education company a while back, a couple of years back. So I was out working for this company and I was literally demoing and modeling some of their educational courses as well that they were doing for other reformer instructors, etc. I've actually had I'm showing off now, but I've had someone reach out to me on Instagram and say, "Oh my God, I've seen you in the videos online." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that was ages ago." But yeah, unfortunately with reformer, the limitations, it's just not going to drive fat loss alone. Let's say you did couple it with nutrition, then we would definitely see some changes. But if I'm honest, you need to be hitting it hard in the gym, girls. Right. So, Anne, just to I'm going to come back to it. Neither of these are bad, right? But I think it's really important to know that neither of these are a whole plan. You don't specifically go, I'm going to go to reformer because it's going to make me toned. I'm going to go to HIIT because it's going to make me burn more calories or lose weight or get toned or drop body fat. These are tools, and tools are only going to work if you are using them properly and in the right context. So let's talk about what actually drives and reduces belly fat. So tick 1, you want a slight calorie deficit over time, one that you can adhere to, one that it's not going to kind of be so low that you go the other way and then you take yourself out of any deficit and all of a sudden you're in a surplus at worst, and then you're not actually in a deficit. You think you are, but you're not, because you're in a surplus because of these crazy binges or off plan or whatever have you, that you're just going the other way. And actually, I haven't mentioned this for a while. When we think about calorie deficit and we're thinking about it over time, quite often people think in daily terms. Some of the girls have actually really started to understand and think in weekly terms, but believe it or not, we can think in monthly terms as well. And I won't go wild and say yearly either. Let's not go there. I think we should have seasons when we're working through different phases. So protein intake in order to retain the lean muscle whilst you are in that deficit. It's a marriage here. You need to make sure that that's tied in. And then we've got the strength training, the progressive overload, the strength training to support your shape and your tone. There is no point in you just dropping weight on the scales, dropping weight and just becoming this skinny mass of just the body, right? And just not having that shape. So we need muscle, ladies. We need muscle. I'm banging on about it all the time, but I'm not like a shredded individual. but it's what gives me strength, what gives me shape and tone is the strength training. It's not reformer and it's not HIIT. Sleep and stress management is so important. And I would say that I've definitely been culprit to experiencing these in a very negative way over the years, but it's taken me time to kind of condition myself to get appropriate sleep and work on stress management as well. And it sounds crazy because we hear this and we go, what do you want about sleep and stress management? But believe me, I have been in those phases within life where I've really haven't slept, and I just have taken advantage of that. So if you are in a position where you can really maximize and utilize sleep, please do it. It's the single most important thing when it comes to fat loss and the stress management as well. You cannot expect to operate at 90 miles an hour and that be sustainable. It's just really important that we think about minimizing this. So what are some of the things we can do? Getting away from the blue screen. So you'll know I kind of might message you from time to time and be like, ladies, phones off, done. And it's because we need to kind of have that window of opportunity to allow our body to get ready for sleep. We need to get the release of the correct hormones to allow sleep to happen and the production of those hormones. And yeah, movement variety, believe it or not. So what I mean by this is, yes, you've got your strength, but I also want you to think about balance here. So I want you to think about your steps. Yes, there is some conditioning involved as well. So it's nice to add these little tools in of maybe a little bit of HIIT, maybe a bit of recovery. You can add some reformer in there. So the idea is to not overload and stress the system, but to try and create a really nice, even balance. So yeah, reformer and HIIT can support this. But again, neither of these are going to replace the fundamentals of fat loss or structured strength work. And before we move on, when it comes to these things, right? And when I was teaching reformer, again, and it was like my full-time thing, my full-time career, we get ladies coming into, so I worked in some physio clinics and stuff as well as sports performance clinics as well. And when you get them coming in and asking about, am I going to get like a flat stomach from reformer? It's going to give me a really like toned stomach. It's going to reduce the belly fat. And it's like the marketing around it is about that. And especially now, it kind of comes in waves. And the current wave is that everybody's in their Pilates girl era. It's, I recall only being asked about it via social media a few years ago and going, what the hell is that torture chamber? But I love it. It's getting more known. It's getting more traction. It's great. It's such a nice activity to kind of do to build, variety into your training and also meet other people. We luckily did a group reformer class and I taught it last year. That was really super fun. We did that for one of our meetups. But yeah, just gonna finish off with saying that you can't train your way out of poor structure or under eating. It's not going to happen. And HIIT and reformer can both support your results, but it's only going to work if it's paired with the nutrition, the strength and recovery. And then when we're choosing our training, it needs to be training that supports our goal, not something which burns you out or keeps you feeling kind of like stuck as well. And yeah, reformer is brilliant for movement quality. When I want to crick and crack my back, like it's amazing to do that. And HIIT, great for fitness, but just to remind you that fat loss is happening with structure, with food, recovery, and over time. So please be patient. We're not looking at seeing results. I've tried something for 10 days and that's it. Let's get 30 days of consistency under your belt, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. It's keep driving it forward, ladies. Those are the things that create change and shift. Thank you so much. Again, drop messages directly, in WhatsApp, in the group as well. And thank you so much for those of you that have watched and listened. We'll see you next time. Thanks.